As a native Black American and a proud member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. Help me help you discover your roots with a personalized genealogy consultation. Paper Trail Genealogy Matters. DNA tests can't prove ethnicity or tribal affiliation. You must search through paper records to dive deep into your family heritage. During the meeting, I will teach you how to navigate the genealogy process with ease. You'll learn how to link tribal affiliation with your ancestors, and I'll show you the step by step process I went through to gaining tribal citizenship. Take the first step to unlocking your past. To book a consultation, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com.
Here in Virginia, the Lovings legacy has been embroiled in an escalating race-based conflict of its own. The question that has arisen is this: was Mildred Loving actually Black after all? Oh shit, y'all, we gonna get into it. Come on, y'all, come on. Was Mildred Loving actually Black after all? And more importantly, why is there a debate in the first place? That there is an argument about this at all 50 years later reflects the intensity of feelings about race in America today. The dispute began more than a year ago when the Virginia Department of Historic Resources decided to erect a highway marker in honor of the Lovings in time for Monday's historic anniversary. But the writing of the text for the marker turned out to be hugely complicated. What was complicated about it, guys? What was complicated? Oh yeah, they was trying to label his grandmama as a Black woman or an African American, and he said, no, my grandmother was a full blood Indian. Let's talk about it. The original text intended for the aluminum and metal marker circulated publicly more than a year ago. It described Richard and Mildred like this, quote, Richard Loving, a white man, and Mildred Jeter, a woman of African American and Virginia Indian descent, married in June 1958 in Washington, D.C. But soon after those words were made public, Julie Langen, director of the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, got a call from Mark Loving, Mildred's grandson. Come on, y'all. Shout out to the grandson standing on business, okay? The grandson is the grandson is a stepper, y'all. The grandson is a stepper. He was not happy. Quote, he objected to our presenting any information that suggests that Mildred Loving was not Native American, that she was African American and not Native American, said Langen. Quote, he would like her to be identified as all Virginia Indian. He said, hold up. Hey, it's cool y'all making a little mile marker about my grandmother. You trying to honor her. I appreciate that. But why y'all calling her an African American and a Virginia Indian? She's all Virginia Indian. All 100%. Come on. He's standing on business, y'all. He's standing on business. So was Mildred Loving Black, Native American, or both? The historic record on the subject is unclear. Mildred and her family are listed as Negro in the 1940 census. Y'all, didn't we start off the stream learning about what the motherfuckers did with the census in Virginia and how they reclassified Indians as Negro and color? So is it any surprise that she's listed on the 1940 census as a Negro? But on her marriage license, it says Indian. It just says Indian. They don't say no half and half. It don't say no mix. It just says Indian. So her census records say she's Negro. Her marriage license says Indian, and they promoting her story in history as if this was a Black woman marrying a white man. Okay. All right. In a 1963 letter to the American Civil Liberties Union, Mildred identified herself as part Negro and part Indian, but nothing established her identity as Black more firmly than the U.S. Supreme Court case that would make her name famous. In his argument before the U.S. Supreme Court, the Loving's lawyer, Philip Hirschkopf, clearly traced the existence of laws banning interracial marriage back to slavery. Quote, You have before you today what we consider the most odious of the segregation laws and the slavery laws, Hershkip argued in 1969. We hope to clearly show is that this is a slavery law. These laws robbed the Negro race of their dignity. It's the worst part of these laws. If Mildred were not black at all, and no one can claim for sure what her heritage was, it wouldn't have kept the couple from being jailed after they married in Washington, D.C. But some people think Mildred passed for black, just like some folks passed for white on Passing Road, only to strengthen her case before the Supreme Court. So, guys, what they're basically saying is at the end of the day, Mildred just wanted to make sure that she can marry who the hell she wanted to. So if the lawyer says that the best defense is to, equivalate these laws to slavery, and if she's passing for black, she's not gonna go out of her way and correct people and be like, hey, no, I'm Native, I'm not black at all. Because at the end of the day, she just wants to be able to marry the man of her dreams, hypothetically speaking, of course. But it says here, one of them is Erica L. Coleman, author of a book about race and identity in Virginia, who has examined Mildred Loving's genealogy in detail. The Supreme Court would have had a hard time actually seeing this case beyond the paradigm of black and white, said Coleman. I believe that for the interest of this case, so that they could win this case and go on with their lives, that she acquiesced and just allowed herself to be Negro. That's also what Mildred's grandson said in a television interview with Richmond station NBC 12 last November when the Hollywood film about the Lovings was released nationwide. The movie portrayed Mildred as black and Richard as white. Quote, I know during those times there were only two colors, white and black, but she was Native American. Both her parents were Native American, Loving said. The puzzle of Mildred Loving's heritage is deeply rooted in Virginia's complex racial history. Decades earlier, the state divided society into two categories, white and colored. Just one drop of African American or Native American blood meant a person was in the colored category. Some Native Americans started to reject any connection they had to Black ancestry. In the 1990s, the Rappahannock Indians, which Mildred claimed was her tribe, would not accept any members who had African American blood, according to a local newspaper account. Though Mildred self-identified as both Black and Native American earlier in life, by the time Coleman interviewed her in 2004, she denied having any African American roots. Y'all, come on, peep game, y'all, peep game. When the court case was going on, she was like, okay, if y'all want to label me Negro, I mean, as long as we get this rule passed, for everybody, for the benefit of everybody, let's just get the Supreme Court to take action. But when it was all said and done, 2004, she's being interviewed, and she denied having any African American roots. Coleman believes she was both. Quote, when I asked her about her Native American heritage, she was very open, said Coleman. Then I said, okay, can we talk about your Black heritage? She immediately tensed up and said, oh no, we have no Black relatives. Today, Mildred's grandson, Mark, isn't the only one who says the same thing. Her brother, Otha, and sister-in-law, Ida, who also live on Passing Road, say she was pure Indian. Quote, I don't know who called her African American because she was an Indian as far as I know, said Ida Jeter at a family gathering at her home on a recent Sunday afternoon. Hershkop, who was just 2 months out of law school when he brought onto the case, says Mildred clearly told him she was African American or Negro, which was the word used back then. So did several of her family members. Now semi-retired at age 80, he says it didn't matter to the case what race Mildred was. Okay, y'all. All right. The whole premise of the case is on race, but it doesn't really matter what her race was. Okay, all right. Quote, legally, whether they were Native American or African American, the law was exactly the same, and the results of the law exactly the same, he said. It wouldn't have made any difference. All of this is a subject of discussion at the Sparta Fastmark, a low-slung white market in Central Point where you can always get a loaf of bread and a pint of gossip. After Mark Loving's television appearance objecting to the portrayal of his grandmother in the recent Loving film, many folks got to talking about just what Mildred Loving was or wasn't. Ricky Crutchfield, pausing to fill up with gas on his way to go fishing on a recent afternoon, said he's just thankful he can marry the woman he loves. Crutchfield is black and his fiancee is white. Quote, I love her and I plan on marrying her next month, said Crutchfield. I do thank the Lovings very much, and if they hear, tell them I very much thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Loving. I love y'all. But others dropping by the store were clearly irked at the position that some members of the Loving family have taken. Sheila Morton, for one, said the family can't have it both ways. Quote, back then, when it was all about the new law running them, it was because she was being accepted in the black race and he was in the white race, said Morton. Now, all of a sudden, they want the kids or grandkids to say they're Indian. What happened to the black part? It's a bunch of bull. She added, now this is the last time I'm going to tell you, they're blacks just like me. Hey, leave it to a black person to try to tell another melanated person what they need to identify with, right? So where does this leave the state's historic marker commemorating the case? Last year, the state of Virginia rewrote its highway marker to describe the Lovings simply as an interracial couple and removed all mention of her being either African American or Native American. Y'all, look at the slick shit they do. Y'all, look at the slick shit. First, they trying to call her African American. Her family comes out. They say, no, she was a full-blooded Indian. So now, instead of just listing her as full-blooded Native, they're like, well, we're just not going to mention her race at all then. Come on. Which leaves people to assume what we have been taught all these years, that this was a case about an African American woman marrying a white man. And y'all wouldn't have known the truth if you weren't here today watching this stream. Because if I take a look at the poll that I posted in the chat a little while ago, let's go ahead and take a look here. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see what you guys are talking about. I said, did you know that Mildred Loving was not black? 60% of you said no. 40% said yes. So clearly, this concerted reclassification effort has been successful. Clearly, the truth about Black Americans' Aboriginal heritage is still being subverted. Come on, y'all, come on. That didn't quell the controversy. Mark Loving and a now county supervisor continued to object, which the state's Julie Langen finds very disappointing. It is really disturbing and troubling to think that it is now 50 years later and we are still dealing with some of the same sensitivities that this marker is all about, Langen said last week. In the face of local opposition, the state last week moved the location of the highway marker away from a roadside several miles from the Loving's gravesite. It's now to be near the former Virginia Court of Appeals in Richmond, where the Loving case was once heard over an hour's drive away. Despite the controversy, Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe is set on Monday to dedicate the marker, which has been in storage for over a year. Come on. So unless you a nerdy motherfucker like me who travels to places and reads the historic pamphlets and mile markers and goes to historical sites, well, even if you are a lover of history, just as I am, know that when you read some of that shit, depending on what racist, eugenic type ideals were behind it, they may be telling us untruths. They may be giving us revisionist history. All my life, we've been brought up to think that Loving versus Virginia was about a black woman marrying a white man. And it turns out she was a full-blooded Indian all along. So I wonder what the chat has to say about this. Let me see. It's still more erasure. Yes. The family comes out, says, hey, y'all need to get it right. She's Indian. So they're like, oh, we're just not going to mention her race at all. How about that? Come on. Stripes of Valor says they should have just sued and had their names taken off of everything for the initial mistake. Whites do not respect forgiveness or compliance. Yeah. Monique says, oh, them damn highway markers. They're always rewriting them. Yep. Interesting to say the least. Come on, truth just keep blowing up in our face, right? Come on.